And I think in treating them like a real writer, they are more willing to engage in the process of revision. So I guess that's maybe a good example of using technology to really drive formative assessment, because that process is very, very formative, and it's absolutely what I use to guide my instruction. So that's one way that I suppose it's changed. Certainly assessment and technology, we can get information more rapidly, but it's again how we use it. Another thing I was thinking about doing with Twitter, actually, a lot of times at the end of class I like to just give out a note card to students and either ask them what they learned about a topic or something. And what a great way to end class would just be to have them, 140 characters to Twitter for the day. Or you could even do something like Poll Everywhere, have them post to that, what did you learn today? And see how that can guide my instruction. So, the next question, have I ever thought of engaging parents in social networking? Hang on here, I gotta see the whole. Have you ever thought of engaging parents in social networking for communication or any other use? I have not done that yet. But I was recently at a conference in Albany where there was a principal in New Jersey, actually. And he was talking about how he used Twitter just to give out information for communication purposes, and it sounded like a really great use of the technology. How much time do I devote to teaching different tools? Do you feel it cuts into other lessons? Can the person who asked this just kind of help me? What did you mean by tools? The technology tools?
Yeah, the technology.
Okay. Well, it really depends on the course and the student and the purpose. So our school district purchases Turnitin.com, which is an anti-plagiarism site that we use for students to turn in papers, but they also have a lot of other functions on there. They can do discussion boards, online discussions, threaded discussions, and I really like that actual source for the online discussions. I know that we could do them without paying for them online, but they have some great ways for me to filter them when I want to read the student responses. And our district is really concerned about advertisements and things like that, and of course it's free of any advertisements. So I do spend some time at the beginning when I'm introducing that technology, because it's going to be a really important part of the fabric of our classroom. But I don't think it takes more than a class period, probably. There are times when I have to decide if I really want to use the technology or if I want to let it go. I don't know, maybe a semester or two ago, I was piloting a unit in my sophomore class, and at the end of it, I asked students to create public service announcements, and they were really excited about these, and they really wanted to create video public service announcements. And I had to kind of go home and think about really what the purpose of my lesson was, because I could reserve the computer lab for a week or two, and I could teach them a lot about GarageBand, and I could teach them a lot about how not only to manipulate the sound in GarageBand, but also to include images if they wanted to, and some things like that. But I ultimately had to remember that the purpose of that learning was not the technology. The purpose was a focus on what can you say in 30 seconds that's going to be persuasive to a listener. And so I decided to not use the technology except for just Audacity, which was the audio recording program that we use, because I wanted the words to speak for themselves. So there are times when I certainly have to make decisions about the degree of technology that I'm going to use. Do I feel like it cuts into other lessons? It can. And I think that's one of the issues that we all have to balance so much, that we have to decide, is it worth the extra week in the computer lab or not? How do I balance work, family, personal time? Well, that is a tough one. First of all, I would say I am not a good multitasker at all, and my husband would absolutely attest to that. But I am a really good compartmentalizer. So I think I'm very good at compartmentalizing. So when I am focused on planning my lessons for my classes tomorrow, I can very quickly and very deeply get into that kind of focus area. When it's time for me to be mom, when it's 4:15 in the afternoon until 8:30 or 9 o'clock, I am mom, and I work really hard to not let school things interrupt that time. Now, certainly being a mom and the things that we do as a family, I think, find their way back into my teaching, because I really do think that we teach who we are. And who we are is a product of our entire, lives and what we do with all of our time. So I think being a mom really has a positive impact on my teaching. My kids are young. We have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and then our baby is 7.5 months old. And the 6-year-old just went to kindergarten for the first time, and so I've been on the other end of this parent-teacher relationship, and it's been wonderful. It's been a great opportunity for me to see kind of the spectrum of all of this. How are we doing?
I think awesome. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm just going to quickly look on Twitter here to see if there's anything that I need to check. Looks like most of the stuff is coming through in the poll everywhere,
Yep.
which is just fine. So one of the other things that Don and I talked about yesterday was professional learning communities. Is that something that you're all interested in thinking about and talking about or pursuing?
It's the quietest I've ever seen them, Sarah. It's kind of, you know what? We switched the tables. It's like there's students now, on the first day of school. But they shook their head yes.
They did, okay.
As a district last year, we challenged ourselves to get started understanding what that is about, and rather than formalizing creating them. Okay.
Sure, absolutely. Well, would you be interested in hearing a little bit about how our school just started to incorporate PLCs?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we actually started about 2 years ago with a year of research and proposals. And ultimately what we did was we researched professional learning communities. We read a couple of books. Our primary resource was the DeFores. And we took that research and a plan to our building and our school board. And ultimately what we asked for was a late start every Wednesday morning. So everyone in our high school would have the opportunity to collaborate with other teachers. And so the first kind of hurdle that we had to get past was really convincing our community and our school board and even the other schools in our district that it would be okay for us to do something different, that we would have a way to manage our students. And being at a high school, I suppose it was a little easier, because if we told most of our high school students that they didn't need to be at school until 9:30 in the morning, we didn't have too many kids who were still showing up at 7:30. Most of them found their own transportation so that they could come 2 hours later. But we did use our associates in the school to create kind of study commons or learning centers, so that the students who did come early, who rode the bus and things like that, would have a supervised place to be while the rest of the teachers were collaborating. The next step was really to define what kind of work would be done in the PLCs and the kind of work that we wanted to avoid. So I would say probably the biggest distinction of PLC time would be that we don't want it to be department meeting time. We want it to be professional learning time. And so we try not to use that professional learning time to take care of scheduling things or the kinds of things that our department just has to address. We actually used a program called AIW, which stands for Authentic Intellectual Work. It's based on the research of Fred Newman and his colleagues out of the University of Madison at Wisconsin, I'm pretty sure. And it's really wonderful because it's an opportunity for us to, all the teachers essentially sit at a table and we bring teacher tasks or student tasks to the table. and we talk about them. Because you know how this is. Usually when teachers talk about what they're doing in their classroom, it's as they have a sandwich in one hand and they're photocopying with the other over their lunch, and they are saying to, I'm going to have to turn off my phone here, one second. Sorry about that. And they're saying to each other, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm working on, and it's all really in the abstract. And what we need to do, I think, as teachers is move from that abstract to concrete examples of what we're doing in the classroom, because there's nothing that really replaces looking at student work together. Because when we can look at student work together, we can not just talk about what we think happened, but we actually have the evidence in front of us of what really happened or what didn't happen. And that's the same with the teacher task. So AIW is one way to do this. I know a lot of schools use lesson study that you may be familiar with as a good model. There's also the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards has something now called Take One, where a school or a group of teachers can choose to work on one single entry together for an entire year instead of trying to go through the entire portfolio certification. And so I think that is another great way to have these kinds of conversations. One question, are we a one-to-one school? We are not a one-to-one school yet, although I know we are definitely having those conversations. You all are much further along than we are. And I think that this probably has something to do with the culture of our school and of our community. That when we make these changes, we really have to kind of wrestle with, are we going to do it for the whole school? Are we going to do it for a small number? How are we going to manage that? And we're in the middle of those conversations. Students are allowed, though, to bring their personal computing devices to school. If they have their own internet hookup, though, it has to be approved. So if they have their, like their Verizon card or whatever, that has to use it, have their cell phones that they use, which on one hand is great. It also brings up issues of equity that we really have to think about and address pretty fairly. Are PLCs organized by department or cross-curricular? Right now they are organized by department, although we do have opportunities built into our professional learning time, which is separate from those Wednesday mornings where cross-curricular work can be done.